Edward Leos. Welcome to Travel Talk, filmed at the Peachtree Rose Marketing Studios and hosted by the hotel guide publisher, Edward Leos.
Good morning, everybody. Edward Leos here, publisher of the Hotel Guide and your host of Travel Talk. Really excited about today's episode. I've actually had a chance to talk with Ignacio a couple of times offline about some of the great things his company's doing, not only himself, but his company. But Ignacio, so great to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you, Edward. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
No, it's going to be a fun one. I love your story, and I can't wait for our audience and listeners to kind of learn a little bit more about yourself and about Grove Bay Group and what y'all are doing. But like I always like to do for all of my guests is to tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of how you got to where you are now at Grove Bay Group, and then we'll talk a little bit about the business side of things as well.
Yeah, so I got into the business sort of by dumb luck. I actually started my career with Deloitte and Touche, which is a CPA firm. So I took sort of an unusual path, and I was working as in a finance department in a big company. And when I get a call out of the blue from Don Shula's son, Dave Shula, one day. And he had gotten my name from somebody that we know, and they were looking for a CFO for their restaurant business. And I didn't know anything about the restaurant business. All I knew is that I like to eat and drink. But when Dave Shula calls to meet with him and his dad, Coach Shula, being a local boy from Miami, following the Dolphins my whole life, I had to say yes. Yeah. So I ended up walking into their office, and I see the Super Bowl trophies and the Hall of Fame jacket, and it took me about 2 minutes to say yes, I'll take the job. But I realized I didn't know. I was a CPA and I was a finance person, and I understood business, but I didn't know anything about the hospitality other than I enjoyed eating and drinking. But once I got into it, I realized that was my passion. My passion and my job were now the same. So I did everything I could to learn everything about the business. I went to Cornell to do a certificate in food service. I did seminars, webinars, conferences. I read every book possible. And then 20 years later, here I am.
Awesome. How important is it to always continue to get better from a knowledge perspective, industry wise, but also just in general?
Oh, if you step into my office, I have a whole bookshelf full of books. So I am constantly reading books, not just about hospitality, but a lot on leadership, management, strategic books. As a CEO of a company, I think it's up to me to always try to get better as a leader, right? Nobody ever reaches and says, okay, I've arrived, I'm there, right? It's always a learning process, and you're always trying to get better. And I think I owe it to the 1,000+ team members that we have that I try, that I'm always trying to improve myself.
Yeah, I think as a leader goes, the rest flows. So that's the saying, when it comes down to it. So I appreciate you for saying that in terms of what you're doing. So let's talk a little bit about Grove Bay Group. Tell our audience a little bit about who you guys are, some of the great things that you may be having on tap, and then what kind of is so unique about what you're doing.
So what makes us a little bit unique is that we have two sister companies. We have a company that operates restaurants and airports. So we're in Miami, Providence, Raleigh, and Seattle. And we're looking at bidding at a couple of other airports this week. And then our sister company operates restaurants on the street side. I think what makes it a little bit different in our street side operations is that we partner with well-known chefs or celebrity chefs like Jeremy Ford, who won Top Chef, Marcus Samuelson, so on and so forth, to create concepts. I think we're only one of two restaurant groups in Florida that have earned multiple Michelin awards, for three of our different restaurants, with Stubborn Seed earning a Michelin star for the 4th year in a row. And it actually also earned a Michelin Green Star this year. So we're very proud of that. So I think we're very unique because we're the only ones. I don't say we're the only ones, but I don't think there are a lot of groups like ours that can operate a Dunkin' Donut in an airport all the way up to Michelin-rated restaurants on the street side. It's a pretty wide, it's a pretty wide range of different concepts that we have. But what we're finding in the airport concept, which is why sort of what we got into into that area, is more and more more and more airports are going away from the Chili's and the TGI Fridays, and these airports are looking more to showcase their local chefs, local concepts, local breweries, and I think that's sort of where we fit in, because what we pitch to the airports is, listen, we have experience being in the airports, but we can also create whatever concept you want. We can partner with your local chefs, and we can create concepts. So not a lot of the big concessionaires that are in airports, like on HMS Host, so those don't have those capabilities. They're just too big to do that. So that's kind of our niche in the airports. So we're kind of taking what we do street side, partnering up with chef driven concepts, and doing that in airports as well.
So talking about the airports, that's one of the things that intrigued me when we had our first conversation, was what you're doing in the airports. And I love that ability to bring the local perspective, the chef side of things, and just to be different. I mean, yeah, sure, it's nice to have brands here and there and brand recognition, but sometimes when you go to an airport and you see a local culinary, leader there in a restaurant, I think that really just stands out for not only the city, but also for the tourists who are flowing through there. Don't you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it makes all the sense that these local airports, let's take Raleigh as an example, which is the one that we just opened. They actually, so we just opened 3 concepts with them. One is a local bar. One is a local, the second one is a chef-driven restaurant with a local James Beard finalist chef. He's like one of the main chefs around Raleigh. And then the third one is a coffee shop, and it's a local well-known coffee shop called Black and White. And they actually kicked out a Starbucks to put a Black and White there. So if that doesn't tell you, and strangely enough, we're doing more sales than the Starbucks did before us, which that is very shocking to me, So I think that airport took it's a pretty bold move to, pick out a Starbucks to put a much, much lesser known local concept. But that just sort of shows you where the trends are going, that again, like you mentioned, airports do want to showcase their local talent, and chefs, concepts, bars, coffee shops, whatever it is.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think it goes back to one of the top things, that experiential travel is just becoming next level. And what better way to experience the city than where you first coming in or you're leaving. I mean, that's really the first point of contact for tourists coming into the city and leaving as well. So if you literally could have a little bit of flavor of that city when you're leaving, and knowing y'all are a part of it as well.
And I think that's the thinking from the airport's, perspective, and not only in the F&B offerings that they want to provide now, but a lot of these airports, Providence, for example, where they're right now, that's an old airport, and they're currently spending a ton of money, revamping it, making it nice, because like you said, that's a first impression of any visitor to the city that they get of the city. So so they're really focused on it.
That's awesome. Any other big things coming up for the rest of the year or going into 2026 for Grove Bay Group?
Yes, well, so we just opened Stubborn Seed, which is our Michelin-rated, our Michelin star restaurant. We opened that in Vegas. We just finished our second full month, and that's off to a great start. So we're pretty excited about that.
Nice.
And then for the rest of this year, what we have is a lot of airport openings. We have 5 locations in Raleigh Airport, and we have 3 in Providence. So that's keeping our team, busy. And then, as far as street side restaurants, we're always looking for the right opportunity. We are blessed enough that we're not owned by private equity or by anything like that. So we can grow at our own pace, and
nice.
And we really look for the right opportunities. We don't like to grow for the sake of growing. So.
And that's a good problem to have. When you can control that narrative, it just makes things a lot different, which it goes back to the nature of your business and the creativity and the uniqueness of it and why you're successful at it. So that's even better. So kudos to you on that.
Thank you.
Let's shift a little from the business side to the personal side. I always like to ask my guests a couple of questions regarding travel. I'm sure you're a well-versed travel man. Yeah. What are a few of your favorite travel destinations? And then, give us some of your bucket lists that are on your your agenda?
Yeah. So I lived in Argentina when I was a kid. I was born here in the U.S., but my dad worked for Wells Fargo Bank. And then when I was 5 in the 1980s, you can do the math. That's to my age, I guess. But he got transferred to Buenos Aires, to open Wells Fargo, down in Buenos Aires back in 1980. Yeah. So I spent 6 years of my youth there. So that's always a spot that I love going back to. Buenos Aires is one of my favorite cities. But other than that, I just love going to Europe. That's my go-to. I've been to London, Madrid, Spain, France, Italy. So I've actually thought about at some point later on, when I retire, maybe getting like a summer home and somewhere around there and kind of, spending part of my year out there, because I enjoy it so much. South Africa is definitely a must do. Cape Town is just stunning, completely beautiful. But on my bucket list, somewhere that I have not been, I like to do something a little more adventurous. You go to Iceland, Antarctica, something really out there, something that a little more eco friendly. Most of the trips that I've taken have been more, sightseeing and, big cities and eating and drinking, which is kind of my job. So it's kind of what I do. But I think soon enough, I'm going to have to take sort of a different approach and do something a little bit more adventurous.
No, I think that's great. Adventure travel is just really taking off as well. And it goes back to the experiential side of things. You're probably, out of all the guests that I've had, the second person that said Antarctica.
That seems so random, but it's probably pretty cool, right? I don't know.
No, yeah, definitely. I think I've actually seen some podcasts of some people who have, traveled there and experienced it. And so it's a pretty unique place. And it's one of those things that's kind of awe-inspiring. You're in the middle of, I don't want to use the word nowhere, but it's a different form of life. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's all good things.
On my bucket list.
No, that's always good. I'm never surprised by people's bucket list or what they've loved to travel. It's really cool to hear different perspectives from leaders around the world that we've had the ability to chat with. So we got a couple of minutes left. Mm-hmm. So what's the best way for people to find you or the company, especially if they're like, hey, I've got an idea about aligning with you, or some ways in that way? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I think through our website, it's grovebaygroup.com. All our information is there, down from all of our restaurants to, how to contact us. Everything's on there. So I think it's probably the best way. Grove Bay Group. Yeah.
No, that's good. Grove Bay Group. We'll have that information in the comment section of the podcast when it comes out as well, so people can find you and get to learn more about the company and what you're doing. But Ignacio, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. I love what you're doing, and I have a feeling this won't be the last time we have you on the show, not just for the tourism and hospitality side, but I love, you're really piquing my interest with the leadership side. Being a leadership and business coach myself, I understand. I understand the importance of what that means to a company's success.
Yeah, it's so important. And the more you read and the more you look into it, you realize that there's so much more you don't know, right? So it's always it's an evolving process of just trying to better yourself. And I'm a big fan.
Oh, awesome. Well, hey, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast today. And like I said, I look forward to having you back on soon enough.
Thanks, Edward. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Well, hey, to all of our listeners, readers out there, you know the drill, thehotelguide.com. That's where you can find us. But please please subscribe, please share this podcast as well. A lot of great content from Ignacio and some really cool things happening at Grove Bay Group. I have a feeling you're going to hear more and more about them, especially as we align and moving forward. So as I like to tell everybody, travel, make memories. Until next time, everyone, take care.